So you want to get good at studying for a really, really long time. Maybe you have a big test coming up, or you just want to be more productive in general and be able to sit down for a long period of time and just get your work done. And you're going to hear a whole lot of nonsense on the internet about ideal techniques or maybe detoxes that can make your attention way better and just allow you to study for 10 hours at a time without getting bored or distracted. But at the end of the day, we're all human and we all have human limitations. So we have to find a way to study as long as possible without letting our own brains slow us down. And without all the fluff, there's two things that we actually have to pay attention to here. First, we have to make the study session as interesting and as entertaining as possible. And second, we have to find a way to stay present and productive when the long hours start to wear on us and we get mental fatigue. To the first point of making your study sessions more interesting, if you have to study for hours at a time, especially if the class isn't particularly enjoyable to you, you really have to find ways to artificially make the study session more interesting as a whole. Because when you don't enjoy doing something like working on a class you're not interested in, it's so much harder to stick with the work and it's so much easier to get distracted by random things in your environment. And even if you're working on something you do actually enjoy, when you're working for hours at a time, your mind is going to get more and more distractible by things in your environment. So we need to make the session more exciting and attention-grabbing to prevent that from happening. And funny enough, you were probably expecting some amazing, new, insightful idea from me about how to study for longer. But in reality, a lot of the fixes for your inability to study for long periods at a time are actually a lot more simple than you would think. So if we're trying to make the study session more enjoyable, what are a couple things we can do? First of all, listen to music you love. Study with your friends. I know a lot of people might be against this advice, as they say you should study alone because you'll be more productive. But when it comes to really, really long study sessions, I'm talking about the 10, 12-hour study sessions. If you're just sitting there by yourself, it is unbelievably easy to get demotivated and just want to quit. So like we said, listen to music you like, study with friends you love, use a study method that you actually enjoy. If you're the kind of person who hates making flashcards for hours at a time and then reciting them one after the other, don't do that. Study in a way that you actually enjoy. Don't be fooled by all these YouTube videos that tell you that one study technique is going to make you so much more productive than all the others. If you have a specific study technique that works for you, that you enjoy, stick to that. Never feel the need to study a certain way because other people online or maybe your friends are telling you to. Use study techniques that work for you. It's going to make it a whole lot easier to stick to when you're going through these long study sessions that are taking hours and hours. Now, other ways to make the study session more enjoyable. Set yourself small goals and give yourself little rewards when you accomplish these goals. You want to have little things that you're looking forward to because it's going to make the whole study session more enjoyable. When you have nothing to look forward to and the whole thing just feels like a slog towards no actual end, it's just the absolute worst. You want to have little things that you can look forward to throughout the study session. So tell your friend that you and her will go and get a snack after one more hour of locked in, focused study. And my last tip to make the study session more enjoyable is to always be switching up the environment that you're studying in. If you study in the same place every single time you study, for example, the library or maybe one of the buildings on the campus that you study at, your brain is going to get very, very tired of seeing the same place over and over again. I used to study in the same place whenever I was studying, and now when I go on campus and see specific study spots, I can't even sit there for a couple minutes anymore because I'm just so tired of seeing that same place over and over again. If you've ever had the experience where you go to a random coffee shop and you find that you can just focus for hours and you have an amazing study or work session, then you'd understand that these new novel environments tend to excite us. And when we're studying, it makes the entire surrounding, the entire atmosphere that we're in, just feel more engaging, and it makes us feel more motivated to study for hours at a time. When you're always studying in the same place, it can become very dull. Switch it up a little bit to make the study sessions more enjoyable. So to summarize my first point, if you want to be able to study for very long periods of time, the first thing that you have to do is make the study session more enjoyable. It is unbelievably difficult to study for, say, 10 hours if you're just hating it the entire time. Obviously, when we're studying, we're going to get bored at times. That's inevitable. Whether we like the class or we don't, eventually our brains are going to get tired and we're not going to be having the best time. But we still have to make the most of it, or else we're going to get completely distracted and derailed. Now, the second thing that you have to keep in mind if you want to study for longer and be more productive in your study sessions is that as you're studying, you have to find ways to combat mental fatigue. I don't care if you're some random guy off the street or if you're the smartest person in the entire world. Everybody gets tired as they study for hours at a time. There's no magical fix online that's going to allow you to study for hours and hours at a time without getting tired. It just doesn't exist. So while I can't prepare you to just study for 20 hours straight without getting tired at all, there are a couple specific tips that I can give you to become less tired and less brain foggy when you're going through these very long study sessions. And several of these tips are useful for before the study session even takes place. The one tip I give all the time is that you need to get good sleep when you're studying. A lot of college students like to have this idea in their head that in college nobody's getting sleep, so they can just pull constant all-nighters and stay up late, and it doesn't really matter because that's just what everyone else is doing. And I've said time and time again that there's no virtue in not getting any sleep. Some people like to wear it as a badge of honor that, oh, I only got 3 or 4 hours of sleep last night. I was just so studious. I was studying so much. Literally nobody cares. It doesn't matter. If you want to be productive throughout your study session, if you want to be able to focus that entire 8 or 10 hour period, you have to get good sleep the night before and several nights leading up to that study session. If you think that you can go night after night of terrible sleep and then go into your study sessions actually expecting to learn something, then you're living in a fairy tale. Recognize that there's always the possibility of getting good sleep. If you think that you can't get good sleep now because you're too busy, you're not too busy, you're just not managing your time well enough. I've worked with pre-med students and engineers who have found time to get 8 hours every single night. Stop using these excuses to not get sleep and recognize that if you want to pull long study sessions, you have to be willing to get solid sleep. And besides sleep, something that a lot of college students neglect is their diet. If you're eating a messed up diet full of a bunch of processed, unhealthy foods, then obviously you're not going to feel energized and focused when you go into your study sessions. I always find it a little bit wild that people are looking for all these quick fixes and magic, miracle techniques online to increase their focus, while at the same time neglecting some of the most basic steps. If you're not eating well now, I want you to ignore all those videos you see on the internet about the perfect study technique. And first, I want you to fix your diet as well as your sleep. You might think that you're just horrible at studying and paying attention now, but it easily could just be physical results of bad sleep and a bad diet. So those are two things I want you to focus on first. Now, besides these two things, what are some steps we can implement during the actual study session itself to avoid mental fatigue as we're going through these super long study sessions? And the first thing I would say is to give yourself periodic breaks to rest your mind from studying for a couple minutes. And I'd say the majority of students would interpret this tip the wrong way, because when I say give yourself a short break, they might stop studying and then they'll pick up their phone and just scroll reels for 20 minutes. This isn't what I mean by give your brain a break. What I mean by giving your brain a break is to do something that's not going to stimulate you even more, but that actually lets you relax for a couple minutes. And this could be talking to a friend for a couple minutes, having a conversation, maybe listening to a bit of music in between the periods that you're actually studying. If you're going right on your phone to Instagram or Twitter and just loading up your brain with a ton of information, this is not resting your brain. You've been studying for the last, say, 5 hours. What your brain needs right now is just time to decompress and relax, not be loaded up with more information from your phone. And listen, if you do this, you're not alone. There's tons of super productive students I've seen doing their Pomodoro techniques or whatever else, and then after maybe an hour of studying, they just jump on their phone and start scrolling reels or stories. Though these people have the right idea of giving themselves some time from their studies to attempt to relax, when you're jumping on your phone and doing all these overstimulating activities, you're not really relaxing your brain. Sitting there, talking, meditating, these are activities that will actually relax your brain. And doing those for several minutes in between these large chunks of studying can be super productive for just decreasing your mental fatigue and making you more motivated to jump back into the study session afterwards. And my last tip for staying focused and present during these long study sessions is to please, I'm begging you, please do not multitask while you're studying. People love to say that they're just really great multitaskers, and I frequently see people studying with stuff like rom-com episodes in the background. And despite how good you think you can study with these distractions or how good of a multitasker you are, you will never be as productive while multitasking as you will be when you're focusing on one task at a time. Let me repeat that. You will never be as focused when you're multitasking as you are when you are focused on one specific task at a time. So imagine you're studying for a super important test and you think that you're studying for 8 hours because you're sat in front of your computer for 8 hours. But if your brain is constantly flicking to this TV show for, say, 3 of those hours, then you've cut the productivity of this study session enormously. I can imagine that if you're taking these super long blocks to study, whatever you're studying for must be very important. So learn how to devote all your attention to the task at hand. Stop feeling the need to always get distracted by something else while you're studying. So listen, when we cut out all the nonsense If you really want to be able to study for long periods of time, if you really have to lock in and focus and study for something that's really important to you, then there's two main things you have to do. First off, make the study session more enjoyable for yourself through any means possible. Second, you have to find ways to prevent mental fatigue as you're going hours and hours of studying at a time. And that's really all there is to it. There aren't any special hacks that me or anyone else on the internet is going to give you that's suddenly going to make you amazing at studying. There are definitely things that you can do to dial in and focus your attention better, but believe me, a secret technique does not exist. Now, if you've watched till the end, I have to say, your attention span is probably pretty good because the majority of people at this point have clicked off. So you have my eternal gratitude. I appreciate you watching. If you like videos like this on studying, productivity, self-development for college students, I recommend you subscribe because there's going to be a whole lot more videos like this soon. But until then, I'll see you guys.